Is 27.5 dead? I'm here with the Kona Process 134 DL 27.5 to find out.
So, Kona have always been about the ride. So let's see what this process can do. Well, there you go. It can scare me off the start, that's for a start. Because, I mean, this isn't the first time I've ridden this bike, and I have to say, finding the front end a bit loose. Even with this big tyre, that mainframe doesn't seem to track or hold the line quite as well as the rear. That's kind of shown there, the way it just kind of shimmied about a bit into that drop. That was sketchy. So, process comes in 27.5 or 29, and if you choose 27.5, you're definitely losing some rolling speed and some efficiency. It's like having a max grip tyre on the front, not a max terror, compared to running 29er wheels. But the plus is a lot more agility in terms of that smaller, more agile and responsive wheel. That's the theory, at least. And you know, Kona, well, to be fair, on either wheel size, they put a really short back end in. It's 427 on 29er, 425 on this bike. But interestingly, because of different wheel size, the BB on this bike actually sits a lot higher, 21 mil, 23 mil, in relation to the axle centers. So this feels a little more perched and tall, but reach is reasonable at 475 anyway. And then 66 degree head angle, 76.3 seat. And the whole point of going with those small wheels is just that increased agility when you're hopping and moving about the bike around. They're less stable, so they're easy to change direction. They pick up more easily. They're just a more dynamic, agile wheel. I really encourage you to get your lean on, get your tyres sliding. Even these big 2.5 Minion VHF definitely feels like it's drifting around a lot. But the real heart of this bike, help, new bits. Whoa, that's really dangerous. Blimey, single traction. You could do with a warning there. Anyway, I was saying, this bike really lives by that rear linkage, that 134 mil of travel, and that deluxe ultimate shock, top of the range, running on a trunnion. That super muscular back end makes it really fluid and sensitive, especially if you have the gate open like I have now. And having that shorter wheelbase means uphill turns at slow speed like that are much less of a fight than they are on 29er. So, but definitely, blunter coming up over these blocks. Come on, guys. Come on, process. Traction's there, it's just a rollover is lacking. And Kona aren't messing around with the spec on this deluxe either. In terms of the wheels, you've got, in terms of the tyres, you've got Maxxis DHF 275 front, and then Dissector on the rear in a 2.4 for a bit more. Oh, please! Come on, Kez. Come on, process, frankly. Should not be losing. I can't remember the last time I lost the front end down there. Especially when I'm just singing the praises of the tyre spec. Anyway, back on it. So yeah. And then WTB, 30mm rims, ready to go. Tubeless, as they are on this. But hub lag is pretty big, and you're only getting a heavyweight NX SX rear cassette. Come on. And the rest of the spec is mostly NX SRAM with a GX rear mech, and then G2 brakes, RS. So you've got swing link for a bit more touchy-feely tuning, and then 200mm rotor for extra power on the front. Oh, at least it held up online down there. It's undermined my confidence a bit, gotta say, but at least that tall BB means no pedal strike problems through there. And then up front you've got a relatively simple Pike Select fork, just a basic charger damper, but 140mm means it's not stretched structurally. Not sure what those rear gears are doing. And then you got 200mm dropper post, which is good for dropping it all the way out of the way, but means seat height is very high for a large 745 minimum. To be honest, near 750. It's actually higher than I'd normally run by 5mm. Come on, I'm really trying to get into this bike, but front end is not giving me those same sure-footed vibes as the rear end by any stretch. Now, even compared to Trek Top Fuel I've been riding recently, and because it's kind of halfway around, it's not a kind of whole frame twang like the Kotick. It's a little bit harder to kind of budget for in the corner response. And the other thing about that dropper is the lever is horrible, really kind of soft and spongy. And then an X isn't quite as sharp as GX when it comes to shifting. And you got a slightly smaller range on that cassette as well, so there's a few things kind of creeping in on the spec when you compare it to like other brands like Trek and White, especially as the frame isn't that complicated. It's pretty simple, to be honest. I mean, external cable routing has its servicing advantages, but there's no storage, there's no extra clips for a bag, There's no internal storage. And while it is shaped, that big S-bend on the down tube and the narrow neck on the super slope top tube doesn't seem to be doing the stiffness any favours, so it just feels a lot twitchier and steeper than it actually is when you start applying some pressure to it, when it starts hitting blunt objects from in front. I mean, part of that might be having the longer offset fork. It's 46mm, so that might make things feel a bit more twitchy compared to a short offset. But normally I jump on a 27.5 and yeah, it's more twitchy, but I love the agility, I love the nimbleness, I love the kind of muscularity, being able to really throw it into corners. But you get that from the rear of this bike, that turn there, you know, hack those bars over, Gwyn style, but it's kind of not giving me the confidence to follow up with the front. Even then, just shimmying across. Oh, hello. Nice log there. I think that's stopping a Strava line, but it's just a nice little feature now. Right, up goes the overlong dropper post. Clunk goes the gears again. Come on, Kona. I mean, suspension is smooth bags of traction, and it actually feels pretty neutral under pedalling. There's no obvious bob, even with it open, but actually feels even heavier than the 15 kilos it actually is. Feels heavier than the 16 kilo special, and the even that 16 kilo Focus. I've just put the video up on. In terms of keeping plugging away. Come on. And while you do get the acceleration benefit, that smaller wheel, that dissected tyre on, I mean, a couple of us have jumped on it now and it's almost felt like pedals are bent or something. It feels like, even with this broad press fit bottom bracket, that there's quite a lot of flex underfoot when you're putting the power down. And again, that's a mainframe issue primarily. And it's just odd because, like, the bearings for the main pivot are massive, and so are the stays, and that welded brace is really big. So the back end should be rock solid. I mean, it's not, I'm making it sound a shocker, but it's not. It's a, you know, it's an agile, fun bike, but it's not the most sorted I've ridden recently, for sure. And
but for now, massive thanks to Kona for loaning me this bike for test. Thanks to Giro Cycling, PTs and Crud for sponsoring the channel. Thanks to my Patreon supporters for sponsoring me on a monthly basis. That makes a massive difference to how much time I can spend how much time I can spend on the channel. So if you really like what I'm doing here, please consider joining up and supporting me on Patreon. But click for notifications, click to subscribe, give this a thumbs up, tell your mates about the channel, and get busy in the comments if you've got any questions about this or other comparative bikes. I'm riding all sorts of bikes all of the time, and I'm always happy to try and answer your questions if you're thinking of buying one or upgrading one if you've got one already. But for now, I've been Guy Kesteven on Guy Kes TV, talking about the Kona Process 134 DL 275.